Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. We've got a super special video for you today, the very first episode of our brand new podcast called the Mobile Music Roundtable. We'll be featuring brand new guests each and every month to discuss topics important to the mobile music production community. The shows will all be between 1 and 2 hours long and should at least be covering 2 or more topics. I tried to fit at least 3 topics in here for the first episode, but everybody just kept having great points and delivering such great information that it really just kept inspiring everybody else to make even more great points. So there is just a ton of great information in here and a ton of great gems, and I really do hope you enjoy. But before we do get started, I did just want to quickly thank each and every one of our panelists. Thank you so much for your time, for being on the show. And you'll of course be able to find all their contact information in the description below. Alright, and now with that intro aside, let's hop right into the very first episode of the Mobile Music Roundtable podcast. Hello and welcome everybody to the channel. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We have a very special episode, the very first episode for you of the Mobile Music Roundtable podcast, and I'm joined by some esteemed colleagues, some amazing, talented content creators out there, guys, and I'm just super excited to get this started. How it's going to go is we are going to go through 3 or 4 different topics or so. I'm going to call on everybody one by one, and then we're going to get their opinion on this, and everybody's going to go ahead and be able to join the discussion. Everybody's going to be called on at random, so we should be able to get everybody's opinion on here. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the very first episode, guys. We're going to start out with the state of mobile music production. Now, this is kind of a big topic, kind of a general topic, but I just kind of wanted to get a feel from everybody to see what you guys think about the iPad ecosystem. How is it going? Are people happy? Is Apple doing a good job? Are they producing enough devices? What can we improve and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and call on Jacob first, Mr. Jacob Hack, the one and only. Don't forget, guys, I will be able to tell at the end of the podcast. I'm going to ask everybody where they can find more about you. So don't worry about that. You don't have to plug anything just yet. But I just wanted to introduce the very first panelist here for the very first podcast, Mr. Jacob Hack. How are you doing today, bro?
I'm doing fine, bro.
Really excited to have you here, man. Really excited to get your opinion on this. So please, if you could just expand on what you think, how is the state of mobile music production?
The state of mobile music production. Well, we're at a stage now where we can pretty much do whatever we could do on desktop. And what we have been able to do on desktop for many years. We got a healthy set of plugins, that works like VSTs or audio units on Mac, AAX. Take any plugin format. They've been there for forever, and now we have it on the iPad and even the iPhone, right? And we have so many different types of hosts. We now see like AUV3 multibus being implemented everywhere. So now we can route all our signals. We can do our side chaining. There's so much we can do. And the M1 hit the iPad like this year, 2021. So the iPad is now powerful enough to run a bunch of plugs. So pretty much it feels like we've got like a powerful desktop machine in our hands, but it's just this one screen. So that's nice. That's nice. But when it comes to like developing technologies for music making, I've recently done a lot of research on where the iPad music making platform where it came from the first iPhone being released to the App Store being released after that. I mean, there wasn't even an App Store for a whole year. And then up to now, to 2021, when the iPad has an M1 processor. And the most bit of in like new technology we've seen was between 2012 and 2016, 17. And in between there, we started seeing inter-app connectivity, audio bus, AUV3, all of these technologies, audio copy-paste, that whole thing happened there. After that, it's kind of slowed down. We've gotten faster and faster iPads. We've gotten newer iPads with nicer screens, nicer iPhones without the stupid headphone port. But, that's what's been happening. But I haven't really seen any new technologies. So it feels like everything is slowing down. And we can see that on the App Store because we're only getting about between 10 to 20 synths being released per year now. 2020, 2021, 2019. It's not like hundreds anymore. We've been seeing an increase in effect plugins being released too, but that's also slowing down. So like I'm scared in one way that it's kind of dying out. And that's what a lot of developers have been telling me, that's what they feel like it's been doing. But I'm not so sure I think we're seeing the platform stabling out right now. And what we're going to have to wait for is more professional features from the desktop and that side of DOS in the DOS that we can see on the iPad and or on iOS in general. I want to see some refinement, and that's what's going to happen for this platform to move forward. And that's pretty much
Yeah,
my take on the state.
that completely makes sense to me. It seems that there's a bit of a consolidation almost. It's kind of like the weak ones kind of got weeded out a little bit, and now we're sort of instead of just exponential growth of all of these, this last tail, kind of like what happened to the original video game systems, right? They just let anybody develop for it, and then Nintendo's like, nah, we're just gonna only allow a certain amount of people because the platform became overwhelmed with all of these third party things, and that's kind of what happened. I think maybe a little bit to the ecosystem in the App Store is that just everybody and their mom could make an app, so we just had 8 million bazillion apps come up, but now it's kind of like, okay, who's going to actually stick around? Who's going to actually be sustainable? Who's going to make money? Who's going to produce the best stuff that people are actually going to come back for? So yeah, definitely agree with that. Definitely great opinion on that, Jacob. Let's go to the next panelist, shall we? Let's bring up Mr. Brandon Rico. Brandon, what are your thoughts on what Jacob said and the overall question of the state of mobile music production?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Jacob, because of how everything is right now, as far as the hardware is there, the power is there, the M1 chips, um, everything's kind of at a standstill for me. I don't know about anybody else, but I've started to see that like even the developers, for just the pro apps that we have, I feel like they kind of
Pro
I don't know.
pro apps.
Yeah,
It's a
I
loaded
mean,
term. It's a loaded term.
it's
Go ahead.
very the whole conversation is loaded because I see a lot of innovation coming from the likes of UVI or IK Multimedia and different developers like that. But at the same time, if we don't get the pro features, yeah, it's gonna plateau, and I do fear that it is. I feel like the tech space right now, period, within the past 2 years has been very boring. Not a lot of new innovation happening, especially in the iOS community. One of the only people, I think we had this conversation before, but one of the only people that were really making a lot of efforts for iOS music on both the software and the hardware front was IK Multimedia. And, it was deliberate iOS as opposed to, other companies who make stuff that just so happen to work with iOS. I think that we need more manufacturers to kind of acknowledge that. And the fact that Apple is starting to acknowledge iPad beat making a little bit more, especially in their keynotes and stuff like that. I think it's just the acknowledgement from the public and people taking it more serious. I think that
So it
we're
sounds,
in a good place.
it sounds very similar to what Jacob said. Is that it's you're kind of we've kind of stalled out a little bit, and that we're waiting for some more pro stuff, right? We're waiting for a little bit more pro feature apps or pro apps, quote unquote, and of course probably some more stability as well. But overall, you think that we're doing good, we're in a good place, but we're now just ready for the next phase, which is going to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
more
and I
more pro
think
stuff.
that where we are now is the good stuff is getting cheap and the cheap stuff is getting good, right? And it's a really good time to jump into iPad beat making or iOS music production, period. Whether you're analog or digital, the iPad and iOS period is an amazing tool, amazing sidekick to your workflow.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. So, and it also sounds like that I think you wish. I think all of us here as well would wish Apple would probably push music production a little bit harder in their marketing, but of course we are just a tiny, percentage of that in general. And, like the music industry is, even when you look at like Hollywood, for example, the sound, we get the least amount of love, right? There's like 1 or 2% budget that goes for the audio, and like 98% is for everything else. So I think in general, we're already going to be a little bit of a niche, but still Apple could really start pushing at least their own GarageBand app, probably a little bit more than they do. But let's go to iPad Beatmaking, see what your thoughts are on this, man. iPadBeatmaking.com. What is your thoughts on the discussion so far and the state of mobile music production?
I think we've kind of got a like a gift and a curse situation happening, or like an imbalance happening. Before, the hardware was seriously lacking with iPad compatibility, iOS compatibility. Now we're finally getting the pro hardware, like the Apogee Symphony desktop, and now we're getting a plateau on the DAW side, it seems like, or things are moving really slow on the DAW side compared to what it used to. It seemed like every year there was some major DAW update, and now that we've got the hardware to kind of go with that, we're losing some of that fast-paced development, and it's unfortunate because it seems like the developers are getting burnt out or seeing, greener pastures elsewhere. So it's kind of like, I know you're going to get to some other questions later, but it makes you ask, is it the user base's fault that we're kind of slowing down a little bit and developers are cashing in on $5 and $10 apps instead of building really, intricate $100 apps that are, professional, fully featured DAWs that can rival desktop? Do they feel like the market's not there? I know you're going to get to that, but I definitely agree with y'all. I think we're plateauing a little bit. Things are slowing down a lot. But on the hardware side, we got Universal Audio that just released the Volt interface. It's not the Apollos and stuff that we all want to work with the iPad, obviously, but it's a start. It's a step in the direction. They're at least testing out the field. Apogee had over probably 10 years to also test out the iPad market with the Duet in order to make sure that it was something viable. There was a real demand there before they just said, you know what, let's jump in with both feet and do the Symphony desktop. So hopefully Universal Audio comes to the same conclusion in maybe a year or two, not a decade, but things are getting better on the hardware side, which is great. Honestly speaking, there's nothing you really can't do on an iPad. I'd like to see output come to iPad. I'd like to see Spectrasonics come to iPad. Think that's really what we're missing out on more than anything, is those super pro, lush, easy to just plug and play libraries. But theoretically, you can really do anything on an iPad. It's just going to take a bit of a workaround because you're not going to get those, those packaged sounds so easily from, the sound designers that are on the higher end of things.
Yeah, so it does seem that on the hardware side, that has definitely been maturing because almost every company has got an audio interface specifically designed for mobile music production, right? For plugging into your iPhone or iPad. Pretty much everybody has an offering, I think, right, at this point?
We're close. Okay. If not everybody, we're definitely close.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with it, though, in its current, it's usually a lower tier interface, right? It's usually their entry level interface. And Apogee, to me, is the only one that stepped up and said, listen, we're going to give you the proest interface we can make compatible with. We can't give you the Thunderbolt interface to work. It's just something we can't do. Apple limits that. But we'll do our, right there at the same level of quality, give you a USB interface that will work with your USB-C iPad or your iPhone with the CCK. So everyone else, though, is kind of like Universal Audio. You can't really use their high-end stuff with an iPad. So we need everyone else to kind of step up and give us that higher-end interface offering for the iPad.
Yep, that definitely makes sense. I do think that we are maturing, but yeah, definitely iPad Beatmaking. I think we got a long ways to go. I'm really looking forward to some of these more sophisticated audio interfaces coming to the iPad. But again, the demand has to be there, right? Like you said. So definitely great points. Definitely great points. Let's go to Ja Rel next. Ja Rel, the music technologist. What are your thoughts on everybody's discussion so far, and what do you think of the state of the mobile music production ecosystem?
Yeah, man, I think everybody's on the right track. I think, we all work in this field in different ways, but we're all hitting the same good points, it seems like, and the same pitfalls. I think the state of mobile music production is in a good place. I think what makes it challenging for those of us who really adopted the medium is that we're waiting for it to really mature. And the momentum behind that maturity has been pretty slow. And I think it's getting slower now. And I think it's because we're starting to mature. And like we're all saying with hardware, I think we're getting to a really good place. And I think the major push obviously needs to be more and better software. But like you're saying, there is an element of supply and demand. Like if the market isn't mature, then you can't expect the medium to mature immediately, right? So I think there are several of us that are really trying to utilize this to its full potential. And that's, I think, where the frustrations hit. For those people that are getting into this is fantastic. Like there's so many things here
because they don't know even what's possible on the desktop. So to
right,
them, it's
right.
just, whoa.
Exactly. I mean, you're going to hit some level of frustration until the medium matures. But like for me, I come from an FL Studio on the desktop, like background. That's me. And back in the day, FL Studio wasn't like one of the main players. Everybody was on Logic. Everybody was on Pro Tools. Reason was a thing more often.
Shout out Fruity. We got to shout out Fruity Loops 3.0 because that's
the old school stuff. Yeah. I don't go that far back, okay. But when I was using Fruity Loops, FL Studio, it wasn't like the popular app, and it wasn't considered like a serious DAW. And I think the curve on how it matured it was very slow, and then there was like a peak, right? And then it kind of has started to taper off because it's kind of more accepted as a more professional DAW. And I think we're at the cusp of that peak here. Like we're on the way up, but the way up is pretty slow right now with updates for, some of our favorite apps. I think we're missing some key features. One thing that I am yearning for when it comes to iPad music production is some serious vocal tuning software. Something Melodyne. Exactly. Something in the realm of Melodyne, or even in FL Studio, you have their Pitcher, which is pretty solid. Or sorry, is it Pitcher? I haven't been on FL Studio in a hot minute, but that's what I use for my vocal tuning. Is I throw it back into FL Studio and use their integrated, manual pitching software. And that's for me, that's my pain point with iPad music production. I think we all have one, and I think we're just waiting for the developers to get there with some of those pro level features. And I think some of it is going to take Apple taking it serious enough to lead the charge, I think. And that's going to cause another stir in development, I believe.
Yep, totally agree. iPad beat making, did you have something? I think I heard you say something.
Yeah, I was agreeing with Jarrell about the pitch correcting software. I have so many frustrations, reached out to so many developers, like the ones that work, and I don't want to name any names, but the ones that do work pretty good, you only can really run 1 or 2 instances on an M1 iPad because it's just so inefficient how they've coded it, or the iOS won't allow it to. We need to be able to stack instances of these things. It's like, the same way that we're expecting to stack 5 instances or 4 instances of another plugin, we should be able to stack multiple instances of the pitch correcting stuff. But serious pain point is to get the pitch correction on iOS. That's one of the things that I think would really lead a person back in the desktop for serious vocal tracking.
Yeah, absolutely agree. There's definitely a few, like you said, main pinpoints, and Melodyne type of software is definitely one of them. Of course, stability is also going to be coming into play eventually at some point, because we all know the iPad isn't quite as stable as it could be. And that's down to the developers, down to Apple, down to kind of everything. It takes everybody kind of working in tandem there to really get something as solid as something compared to, like the desktop. But like you said, some apps, they just might not be coded correctly, where like some apps, for example, take 40+% CPU and you stack 2 of them and you're done. And that in that instance, I believe that that's the application developer's fault, and that should be optimized a little bit better, because the iPad is a pretty relatively fast device, especially with the M1s. And now the M1s are going to be cheap because of the new M1 Maxes and all that stuff coming out. So I think the M1 Pros, and then eventually the M2, of course. And so it's going to get really nuts. So there should be no excuse for those apps being really, really, really latency driven like that. Yeah, definitely agree. I think it's time for Nutrix, the last but not least, Mr. Nutrix himself, the man who has more synthesizers than all of us put together. Mr. Nutrix, what is your thoughts on the discussion so far and the state of mobile music production, sir?
I think that music production has been it's probably at the best place it has been in years. Meaning that the option for anybody who wants to do mobile creation can do it easily today. The iPad has been that opportunity for years, to be able to do that. And even if I have hardware stuff, and I love hardware, I have always had in my workflow the notion of having a portable device to be able to create anywhere. In 95, I bought this, and that was my portable
Yes.
creating box, the QY from Yamaha. And that was like, I don't know, $600 at the time. That was massive, but that was really cool,
For those just listening in audio, what was the name of that device one more
That's
time?
that's a QI70.
Okay. Very
And that thing was just like really, really fun to play. And I mean, it always has been part of my workflow. And today the iPad is still not my only device that I play with, but every time I want to create, it's the best place to be. It's just easy to take it out, to work with it. So for me, what's the most important part is to have, like we said, good quality software and plug-in, of course, but also the interconnection with the rest of the world, and not just hardware. The fact that I can save a song in ZenBeats, for example, and then open my computer and have access to the same song. Now I don't have the same plugin, I don't have the same synth. So I'm gradually hoping that everybody that I use their plugin in, that they have onto the two platform the same, so I can actually move between them easily. And that's
the
for
dream,
me the
to be
next
able to,
step. That's
the dream, to seamlessly move between the desktop and an iPad.
Yeah. And like we said earlier, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you would think that Apple being Apple, they made the ecosystem so
It's supposed to be seamless. It's supposed to be seamless.
It would be that way by now, especially
But-
with GarageBand and just a lot of different things. AirDrop, all that stuff. You would think that it would be that by now. So yeah,
It's not yet. Well, I mean, there's all these different ways to save online and then load back in and all that stuff. So like you can use Google Drive and all that stuff, but still, it's not as seamless as we would like to have. And not everybody's doing it because not all the softwares exist on the two platform. Even if Apple says that, well, it also runs on your Mac, which is not the case because it depends on the developer. So we'll see. And like we said earlier, like you guys said, the main difference is that right now we're looking to get higher, or what we call pro apps, because we're used to that. We're used to have these quality or these type of controls on a Mac or a PC, and then we get on the iPad and say, well, we're looking for the same thing. But like we said earlier, anybody starting up, the iPad is the best place to create from scratch to start, because it doesn't cost you that much, and you can experience everything. Mobile creation, beat, everything. And what's interesting is that the app made for iPad, most of the time they're really satisfying because they made with that logic of that interface and within the limits of it. But those who are made to mimic what's on the computer, they're not always well adapted to the iPad way of working. So it might be, I'm not sure. I'm curious that where it's going to go with the fact that the M1 is super powerful, but the OS does not give you or the developer as much control as they have on the full Mac version, for example. I'm curious to see where Apple will bring the two OSs, or three if you add iOS, iPadOS, and macOS in the next years. Will it actually give more power to the iPad M1? I used to do my video edit on Final Cut. Now I do them in LumaFusion in 4K, and it's without any slowdown. On my i7 on my Mac, it's just so slow when I do 4K video editing. So it's just mind-boggling that the iPad is just like super fast about it. And my Mac, I have to export, wait, do proxies. It's just like super heavy for the same videos. And it's just like, for me, it means that the iPad has so much more capacity with the M1. I think the future is going to be really interesting when people understand. I mean, the developer if I'm not mistaken, the next OS, Apple was saying that the developers will be able to address more RAM space for each of their plugins. So we should see something different, at least for music. That should be a big plus for us.
And
So
Apple is trying to do some integration. I mean, they're trying to make AUV3 work across any M1 device, right? So there's people experimenting with now. Of course, it doesn't function correctly without the touch. Interface might not work right. But the effort is definitely there. You can kind of see that the effort is there, and what the wants are, right? What the goals are going to be eventually.
And on the topic of having a slowdown of new apps coming out, I think that a lot of the effervescence, the amount of new stuff we saw coming out in the last 3 years was because a lot of companies were just testing out. Will this mobile stuff happen? Really? Is there any clients to get in that section? So they tried out. Some just stopped, saying, "I did it. I'm waiting." Others are pulling out. If I'm not mistaken, Arturia is not doing anything new, and they decided to just stop doing any new development on the iOS for now. So, I mean, we'll see. I think it's a question that we'll talk about also. It might be the cost. It might be that they're not making enough money by selling on the iPad. So it means that there's a big question of why do we still do it,
And it's kind of a chicken and an egg problem too, right? The developers can't really program and plan for a large ecosystem until there's actually people there that want it. So, but then you have to have people there, to actually want it. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg problem. However, I think that as time goes on and Apple just continues to keep making these devices so darn fast that it seems to be inevitable that eventually the world will catch on. It just because it's so early, it feels like to me right now in the overall state of the iOS ecosystem is that for music production, it's just still super, super early. We only got the AUV3 standard a couple of years ago, like 2017, 2018. So I think that if we give it enough time, because you say the devices are already fast, I think we can all agree that devices are extremely, extremely fast. They're ready, I think, for pro apps for the most part. If not this one, then for sure the M1 Maxes and the Pros and those things, right? So we are definitely ready, but now, like everybody says, we're just sort of waiting a little bit for some more big pro features because we've kind of plateaued a little bit. We went up crazy. We invented all these standards. We got the USB-C port. We got all of these things ready to go, and now it's just time for the big developers, I think, to step up. And they're again just waiting for again that chicken and egg, waiting to see if other developers are going to make money first. But there are some people that are really focused and dedicated, like IK Multimedia. I really would like this was going to be a topic, but I think I tweeted this out. I just really want to see some more numbers from these companies. We need to be able to see, like, for at least not just for producers, but for other developers to see, look, how well is RK Multimedia really doing? Unless you're part of that company, you can't really know. Of course, there's backdoors that people talk and big corporations and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like just the addressable user base, we don't really know. We know how many iPads are sold, things like that, but we don't know how many copies of Cubasis was sold. We don't know how many copies of Beatmaker 3 is out there in the wild because there's just no numbers. And so I think that's going to be a part of the maturing ecosystem. As we start to mature, we're going to get some more numbers, and then that I think can help get more people some more confidence to step their toe in. What do you think, Nutrix?
But I think that also it's linked with the fact of what can the developer do with the OS itself. Let's say you want to use the real Cubase, not Cubasis, but Cubase on an M1 on iPad. You should technically, because the M1 can take it.
It's fast enough, yeah.
So that's not hardware. It's really just the software giving the option, all the same options. And I think it's going to come up as Mac OS and iPad OS gradually kind of copy each other's. I will say,
and merge eventually too.
I'm not sure they're going to merge, but I mean, what we saw, like Jacob was saying, is we saw a lot of the stuff that's on the Mac come up on the iPad. Basically, the UV3, I mean, all that stuff existed before and was just like, okay, let's bring it in. So how much of it until we get the capacity of running the same type of software or the same size of software, I would say, because Cubase is a lot bigger than Cubase is a lot bigger than Cubasis is. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I think we have a pretty great discussion. Before we end this topic, I'd like to go around and ask anybody if they got any final words to say on this iPad beat making. Did you have something?
Yeah, I do. Quick question. Is it, as far as I know, it's not possible to record a mono track, right?
You can record a mono track, but you can't export a mono track in Cubasis. You can't export anything mono.
No, you can record on one channel and it'll sound mono, but it is the actual stereo track that it's bringing in, right? I don't see a designation.
Because if you go to the routing and you can choose stereo or mono. I thought that would record in mono once you choose mono. I actually never tried recording in mono.
Okay, I've heard something that the engine isn't letting you actually record a true mono track, so it's taking up twice the resources or something crazy like that. And if that is in fact true on iOS, then some things just on the most basic level got to be addressed with making it more efficient overall for, you know, DAW developers to really, and the DAW itself to really be able to feel like you're getting that maximum performance out of it. Because if every track you're doing is really 2 tracks in terms of the resources it's taking up compared to a desktop, that's crazy.
Yeah, 100% great point. There definitely has to be some further optimizations and stability improvements in the software, because I think we all agreed the hardware is there, right? It's going to be now down to the stability, down to the developers to see. And I think there's just going to be more and more addressable user base for the actual companies, because Apple just keeps selling more iPads. They just keep making more, and they just keep making them faster. So it feels like, you know, there's going to be like at some point, like the world's going to figure out that you can produce music on the iPad. What do you think?
I definitely agree with that. I just, it's a good time to be a photographer or videographer though with iOS devices.
And a video gamer.
All that, everything but music is just perfect out here right now for iOS users.
Pretty much, like, obviously we all know if you go to the App Store, it's just all Fortnite clones because that's just what makes the money. I mean, they make billions and billions of dollars. That's actually pretty gross how much when you think about it.
I thought about that when even with the cameos of GarageBand in the most recent keynotes, even for the iPad Mini, they showed a guy playing, you know, creating in GarageBand just on the go. And for me, that was way bigger than I think we gave Apple credit for.
I think so too. I tweeted about it, but people were making fun of me that it was only 1 second. I'm like,
I mean,
ad was only a minute.
It was 1 second, but it was a nod. You know, it was a nod.
That's why I see it as,
and directly from Apple, and that tickled me a little bit. It got me excited, and you know, like I bought the iPad Mini just because of that. You know what I mean? Like, and just I feel, you know what I feel like? I feel like we have a chainsaw trying to cut a piece of paper when scissors will do. And what I mean by that, what I mean by that is that the hardware is already there. Like Jacob said, like Nutrix said, this stuff has already existed. They just decided to bring it over. When was iPad already ready, and versus the time frame that they decided to bring it over? And that's my issue with the current state of iPad music production. Is just
it's taking some time. It's taking longer than you want it to.
It's way more capable than developers and manufacturers, or, you know, even Apple is allowing. So
yeah, makes sense. All right, cool. Anybody have any final words on this topic before we move on? Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Please.
I do. Yeah. What I want to say is I often do poop a little bit on Apple, and I do like criticize them for stuff that I think that they're doing not necessarily wrong, but annoying me and many other producers in various ways, or just users of the platform. But I got to give them some credit, because when doing my research, I mean, in 2007, when they introduced the first iPhone, I mean, among all of these, like, wait. No, it was in 2008. During their special event, they introduced the App Store. And during this event, they have these huge companies on stage demoing their apps, because this is the first time that third-party developers can make apps and sell apps on their App Store, right? This is new. This is completely new. This is the start. And one of the apps there is from a company called Moo Music. And it was this app called Band. It's the first music app. And this is one of the apps that they show. Apple has always had a sweet spot for musicians. And I never really saw it until I did my research. I mean, they introduced Interapp Audio after talking with Michael Tyson from AudioBuzz. They introduced AUV3. We are a small part of their market, yet they still do these things for us. So I have to give them more credit for what they're doing. And I think it's impressive that even though we're not that such a, you know, big deal when it comes to market share, they're still doing it.
Yep.
It's impressive. It's very impressive. They do care about creatives.
You have to commend them a little bit, at least a little bit, because if you do your research like Jacob says, you will find out that, again, they've released IAA, they did the AUV3, they did this all in a span of just a couple of years. They did it after the user demand. They acted relatively quick. I mean, compared to Microsoft and other large companies and things like that, they reacted stuff pretty quick. Now, it's probably also due to the fact that they release a new iOS every single year, so I mean, they always got to be adding new stuff and push new stuff, but still, at the same time, we still have to commend them for adding things like the IAA inter-app audio, and then now the AUV3 standard. And I keep trying to remind everybody that was only a few years ago. Like it is still a little bit early, and I think it's going to take some time. We are plateauing a little bit, but we are now ready, I believe, for the next big leg up, and that's going to be things like Apple releasing Logic on the iPad. That's going to be things like Contact. It's going to be things like these big huge companies coming, and that's when everybody else is going to jump in. Because remember, first one or two have to break off from the herd, right? One or two have to break off from the herd before everybody else starts coming in. So I feel like if we can just get the right amount of ones, or just past that threshold of the right amount of companies, then everybody else is just going to kind of jump in, and that's going to take something big like Apple releasing Logic or something similar to that. Nutrix?
I want to say something about the hardware. We talked about the fact that a lot of companies don't have pro hardware, a sound card for the iPad. And I remember I had in the past a really good Stangberg interface, which has plugins in it, DSP in it. And the only reason it worked is because they made a driver for the iPad, which is totally unusual today, because all the interface you don't have a driver, you just connect it and it works. And this one, if you connected it without the app, didn't work. So you needed to install the app, you got the driver and the app, you also have access to the DSPs, the internal reverb and delay that was inside the box. So that was really cool. But then it was the only one they did, and then it was gone. But it's possible if somebody want to make that, I don't know how difficult it is to code, but they could. We said earlier about universal audio interfaces. Well, technically, outside of the fact that it connects with the right cable, the M1 could run it. It has, anyway, the hardware is doing the processing. So it's just a question of having the codes at the right place. And I think the limit is basically the OS right now is still capping it some way,
Yep.
And I think
I gotta put in something real quick. Nutrix, if you want a new Steinberg interface that does that, they did produce a new one, and it's got full support for iOS. It's called the UR816C.
Oh, yeah,
it comes with a USB-C port, and they also have an app that they currently support, and they keep updating it. So you have it's a pro interface, and you can do multi-tracking on that.
Sound Test Room,
really high quality.
Yeah, Sound Test Room just did a thing on it, right, Jacob? I don't know if you saw that.
No, but I will be doing one soon. I've had it now for 6 months, and it's really, really good.
Nice, so that's interesting. It shows that it's possible. They need to put the effort in it. That's it.
Yeah. So,
sorry, Brandon.
Yeah, I'll let Brandon go real quick. Just let everybody know. Definitely make sure to go to Sound Test Room and check out that video, because he just did a video on that app and that interface, and he was recording in Cubasis using effects from the interface, live recording in. So that was really, really cool. Sound Test Room. Make sure you check that out. YouTube.com/Sound Test Room. Brandon, you had something.
Well, I was going to just piggyback on the hardware front as far as Apple being able to put these things out, or even invite other manufacturers to pull that stuff in. A lot of manufacturers are not really diving into, making drivers for iOS. It just so happened to be class compliant, plug and play, and it just so happened to work with iPad or iOS. And if we could get, people like, Arturia to make a deliberate device. We have devices for Logic. We have devices for even Akai has made a device for FL Studio now, and there is not a lot of dedicated devices for iOS. Even when iPhones and the new iPads come out with the new cameras, that caters to the photography and videography community. And then what Jacob said, they're looking out for the creators, but then they do stuff like take away headphone jacks. That's a pro feature to me.
Yeah.
They take away headphone jacks from their pro devices. And I would love to see Apple put that back into, at least if it's not going to be in the consumer devices like the, like the iPad minis or anything like that, at least put it back into the Pro, iPad Pro M2 or whatever. That's a pro feature that I feel like I would have paid a little bit extra for. That's a convenience factor as far as being a creator, because people who use it to either make music or video editing, you need that no latency feedback with the, and that's what the audio jack kind of provided. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would just like to see more dedicated efforts or deliberate efforts to cater to the music production community for iOS.
Great points for sure. Before we move on to the next topic, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to Steinberg, because look, we were talking about how software doesn't quite update, as much and as fast, but you do got to give a shout out to Steinberg, because they have released some pretty good updates recently, with 3.1, 3.2, and then 3.3. There are some pretty big features. It just takes them, 6+ months to put out every update, 4 to 6 months to put out an update. But once they do, like, the updates have been getting there, and, more and more mature things like being able to use your keyboard and things like that. So yeah, I think that we just got to give it a little bit more time, and the hardware is there, and just got to give it some more time. And I think more people will jump in. All right, cool. So let's
really quick.
Sorry.
Let me just add to that real quick.
Please.
One thing. Sorry to cut you off. One thing that the DAWs, Steinberg, and the rest of them need to incorporate. This has to be on record. We need scrolling in mouse and trackpad support. It's just not realistic to really manage heavy duty audio sessions, and you can't scroll through the timeline, the main screen, as you're trying to edit audio. It's crazy. You got to click and drag. You end up moving the audio track on accident. It's just a mess. So hopefully Steinberg addresses that, and the rest of the DAW developers also. And what I also want to say is I love what Steinberg is doing. I also agree with Brandon that we're not really getting those deliberate interfaces. Apogee kind of solved the best of both worlds issue, where they've got the DSP on board. They've got the touchscreen directly integrated, so you can get all that DSP without the need for a dedicated app. I can accept that if that's the direction that interfaces, makers want to go, where it's like, fine, you don't want to give us the dedicated app, but we still can get the DSP on board usable before we get into the iPad. But more developers doing what Steinberg did that don't have touch devices would be great for the UA interface. If we could have a direct, DSP interface on the iPad, that would be great. So I agree with Brandon. It just happens to work with it. It's not really designed to for a lot of these interfaces. So,
and just real quick on the zoom, just so you know, you can bind the key to a zoom in and out. So you could have a keyboard or something just zooming in and out without having to click and drag. iPad beat making.
So hold on real quick. If I'm zoomed in, how do I get to? If I'm at bar 8, how do I get to bar 88 without?
Right. Oh, so yeah, so you can zoom in or zoom out, but then you still have to move everything over. Yeah, you still have to.
I'm saying,
okay. I got
but
you.
when you're dealing with, say, a 15-track song or something heavy, something big, bunch of punch-ins here and there, and you need to trim or move through that track. Now, anytime you click, you're committing to an action of some sort that could move a track, and you can be 100 undos.
Yeah.
Away from that move and not realize it until you play the whole song back, and now you're like, wait a second, how did this happen?
I think that's happened to us all at some point. Like, we do something, one little minor, and then days later we figured out, and now we got to spend hours fixing it.
Exactly.
That's the kind of the theme for iOS beat making, is the commitment of the mistake that you made and being innovative enough to work around those limitations. That's where we are.
I agree 100%. I know we need to move on to the next topic, but
I'm trying, but it's not working.
It's okay. I'll be really quick. No, I think Brandon Rico has a point with, it's part of being able to make really powerful art, because that's what we're trying to do here. Like, we all talk about the hardware and the software, but ultimately we're trying to make good music. And a lot of times it takes accepting limitations to actually create more creativity. Now, because of the wide use cases of, different artists, different styles, different genres, there's always going to be something that is absolutely crucial to one sector and not to another. And so, but I think if you can find the set of limitations that still allows you to create, because sometimes having all the options in the world just leads to stagnation. So I think sometimes, like as this thing ramps up and gets better, that's what we all want. In the meantime, I think working with some of these limitations can help us have more creativity in the meantime. And since iPad beat making mentioned one of the crucial pain points, the one I'll throw in there, and I think this is with both Cubasis and Beatmaker 3, and I don't know a whole lot of the other DAWs, but having explodable tracks where like you have your drums, right? And you got your hi-hats, you got your kicks, snares, and whatnot. I literally have to stack those on top of each other in Beatmaker 3. And then even using, multi-MIDI out in Cubasis, you kind of have a million random tracks that you don't want in there. But you can't explode it, which is kind of nice. But it would be nice to have like an integrated explode where you can just see all the different tracks and lay them exactly where you want. So that's my
track folding is such a basic thing. You'd think that,
yeah.
I mean, that all the DAWs would have had it by now. The iOS DAWs would have had it by now. But no, totally understand for that. But I think we can move on now to the next topic. We're already an hour in, but we'll see how much we'll be in once I actually get the editing down. Maybe we'll cut out some stuff. I don't know. But everything's been so good, there's been nothing that I can cut out. So we're going to keep it moving. So we're going to go on to the next topic, and that is going to be kind of related, kind of like adjacent maybe to our previous topic, which is, should app prices increase? That's the question I want to ask the panelists, and of course anybody who is watching this during the live premiere. Definitely give us your thoughts, and for those who missed it, definitely give us some comments. Make sure you respond to all these topics in the comments below. But the next topic is, should app prices increase? And we'll go to the Nutrix first this time. Nutrix, what is your thoughts on this? Should the app prices increase? Because there's some debate back and forth between some people are saying that we want to keep this cheap. We don't want to just allow corporations to come in and take over and start charging us an inordinate amount of money, just large amounts of money for no reason, right? If the quality is not there. But then there's the other pushback of people saying that, look, we need these app prices to increase, because if we don't, then we're not going to get the contacts. We're not going to get the big, huge companies coming in like we'd like to come in. So so there's kind of this crazy balance. What are your thoughts on this, Nutrix? No problem. Let me repeat it. So basically, there's just kind of this position where, one, we shouldn't increase app prices because we want to make sure that everybody can still be accessible, so that we want to make the ecosystem as accessible as possible so that more and more people around the world can use these apps. But then there's this other vote where people want the app prices to increase so that we can entice developers to come in and start bringing us those more pro apps. So what are your thoughts on this?
It's a difficult call, because there's a totally two different vision on what you're talking right now. There's the vision of accessibility, so that people can get in and learn and have fun and just have an easy introduction, I would say, to music making, which is, I think everybody should make music. That's another question, but I think everybody should do it. It's just a good thing for your health. But the question then is the question about how much should they get to be able to survive as developers, which is not a question of accessibility. It's a question of surviving as a business. So what's interesting right now is on the iPad, and it's been since the beginning, a lot of small companies are existing because of this ecosystem, that they can be a 2-3 member company and make plugins and apps and survive because of this, because their overhead is small, But big companies, when they come in, well, they won't ask the same amount of money, that's for sure. And there's also the perception of people. People expect or have been expecting on the iPad, because it's an iPad, it's not a full computer in their mind, that you shouldn't pay the same amount of money. Imagine they would ask $150 for Cubasis. People would say, well, are you sure? Yeah, or if they would ask, imagine they would come up with Nuendes instead of Nuendo, and it would be on iPad, and it would be $800. People would say, no, there's no way I can pay that. Because if you go that route, we go back to the question we had earlier about pro and versus not pro or iPad dedicated. So it's a difficult question to answer. And I think that at one point, it's more of a business case where the companies can say, well, they're going to have to kind of play and say, where can I survive? How do I say I ask a lot and I sell few, but I survive with that, or I ask less and I sell a lot. But then it's a question of how they want to do it.
It's a question of what's your business model, I think, at that point.
Yeah. If you look at Eventide, in the last 2 years, they almost stopped releasing new plugins, but they were releasing like new plugins almost every month for like a year and a half. But all of these plugins are basically one preset of what they have in their pedal, So in a way, the hardest part was to make it so it works on an iPad, and the workflow and the tactile interface was kind of logic for people to use it. But it was simple because it was a 10 knob interface in the ribbon, and it was always the same thing. So they just reuse what they had, which is good because they made the job and it sounds good, but it was basically selling one preset at a time. And that's how they were able to sell it less and still make it so it's useful for us instead of buying like the pedal and 200 different presets. So this logic makes it, I think, possible for them to do it without costing too much, so they don't have to ask too much. But so each company has to think about how they want to do it. If not, basically, if the same stuff as on the Mac, it's going to be the same price at one point. That's for sure. There's no reason for them to say, well, for you guys, it's going to be half price. It's just, we wish.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. It really comes down to what is your business model going to be, right? So great points on that, Nutrix. Let's go to iPad beat making next. What are your thoughts on this, man? Should app prices increase? Are we taking out? Are we just completely shutting out an entire user base of people that need the apps to be $3, or are we creating even more opportunity for people by bringing in larger developers and more pro apps? What do you think?
I think that the app prices should be priced according to what the developer can have as a sustainable business model. I don't think things should necessarily be cheaper or more expensive. I think stay in business because we need those updates. Stay motivated to keep pushing out updates, whatever that number is. If that number is $50 for your business model, then make it $50. Don't make it $20 and then basically be one and done, or have one update every 2 years as an Apple signing certificate, basically because you did all you could do and now you don't have the resources to take it any further. The apps are an investment for the users. If we take the time, our most valuable resource, our time, to learn the app, it's nice to see an evolution occur versus iOS 15 breaks it and an update's not coming because the developer can't afford to update the app to correct whatever the issue is. So I think there's room for every level, just like there is on PC. There's a way or Mac, there's a way to do things cheap if you're motivated to go the cheaper way. Maybe it takes more time, but you can save the money by using, other the super top tier stuff or subscription based stuff. But I also would like the choice on iOS to have access to some of those same options as well. Doesn't mean I'll take advantage of it, but I'd like to have the choice. Like, you know what? I'm good right here with this DAW. I don't need to use Pro Tools at 30 and 40 a month, but say I've got a serious project and a deadline to get done, I might want to sign on for a 1 month subscription, knock the project out, let the subscription lapse and, keep it moving. So I just think things need to be in a sustainable place. I'm seeing a lot of developers get burnout, lose motivation. And when I've had conversations with them, the money's not there, but the complaints are. It's an empty wagon makes a lot of noise kind of thing. And so it's sad to hear about it because it's like, dang, I really like your vision and where you're going with it. But if you can't afford to keep it going, and now because they've set the bar at this price point, how dare they ask for an in-app purchase, or how dare they come up with an updated app that's almost the same, but a little bit different, a little bit modified, and ask for twice the price. People, $40. It's just, how dare you? It's not, it's like, whoa. There's a place for free or cheap, but there's also a place for a developer to get what he feels or she feels their work is worth. You know what I'm saying? Especially for such a small market. It's not like they have the in-app purchases to buy costumes or coins or things that can keep, like a video game that can keep it sustainable and just the money rolling in. It's usually, all right, I bought your app and I bought your one in-app purchase in the end. Now I got it for 3 years, 2 years, a year, whatever. And that ends the life cycle for some of these developers where they can't keep going.
It definitely gets tough if you don't have some kind of app that, you know, has more stuff that you can buy later, right? Like a lot of the Novation apps and things and the Amplify apps, they all have stuff that you can just keep releasing more stuff, more features and more packs that you can keep buying that is sustaining those apps pretty well, I believe.
Absolutely. And then the thing is with them is they're not this isn't their only act, right? So they're able to take things from their other product lines and say, you know, let's just bring that over here. Just like Apple's able to do a GarageBand. That stuff's coming out of Logic Loops and coming out of a desktop. You know, they're like, let's throw the iOS kids a bone. Let's go on and throw something to them. You know, they can take an artist feature pack and put it on 3 different product lines. They can put it in Logic, GarageBand on Mac, and then GarageBand on iOS. So it's not like they're putting all their eggs into the iOS basket with, you know, an app feature.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of these smaller developers are just doing that. So it makes it tough for them.
Definitely makes sense. Yeah, I definitely agree. So let me just quickly ask you before we move on to Jarrell, iPad beat making. What are your thoughts then? Would you be upset then if prices were to increase, like across the board, if developers were to start increasing their prices? Would that upset you or would that not?
Okay, let me just get this with clarity. Are you saying that apps I already own and therefore won't be affected by this price increase? Are you saying that
this would be new apps? This would be new apps coming out that would like be more like, for example, Bleece. If they started doing $20 as the base price for their apps instead of $9, would you be upset at Bleece, for example?
No, I would not be upset at Bleece. I think it's kind of absurd what we're getting in exchange for some of these things. It's like stop drinking Starbucks or don't get the pack of beer today, or whatever the thing is that if music is that important to you. It used to be so hard to get into music.
Impossible.
It used to take so much.
Almost impossible.
Just to get like a Yamaha keyboard that, you know, you could respectfully take to a studio here, and it was like $900, and that was like, you had the most garbage drums, but you had the other sounds that you needed, you know, and then you had to go find drums from somewhere, beg somebody to sell you, you know, an old studio's stems with the drums on it that you could, I mean, it was just, the struggle was real. So we're talking about from $9 to $20. I mean, if your dream is music and we're talking about $11 stopping your dream.
Now, I think that on the discussion we had on your channel recently, I think we said that $50 is pretty much the limit to where, at least right now in our ecosystem. I'm gonna let Brandon comment too, but but I think we said $50 is going to be, that's right now where we are in our ecosystem. Anything above $50 is going to make us double think and double check. Up until 50,
I think we should double think and double check on any decision we make. I think any purchasing decision, you should be thinking twice. You should be weighing it out. Is it worth it? Are you actually going to use it?
But it's new and shiny, bro. It's new and shiny.
It's always new and shiny, but
and Sound Test Room's got a video on it. I gotta keep up. No, I'm just
absolutely, that's what keeps the developers going. But I think like you can't convince me that Beatmaker 3 is not $100 app with all it can do. Like, will we pay $100 for Beatmaker 3 if it was updated every 2 to 3 months and super stable, and the developers could hire more coder, whatever is required of that? Like, would we pay for a full team to keep the Beatmaker 3 development going, the in-app purchases going, this add-on, that add? I mean,
I think all of us here would. I think all of us here would, for sure.
Exactly. So that's why we need to be willing to embrace whatever the market dictates. Is if we need it and it's offered at this offering, cool. So like apps like Beatmaker 3, I remember, didn't they give it away for free for like a month or something like that?
They both well, not some, but both there's a couple DAWs that gave their, it was Zen Beats, I believe. They did a thing that was free for like 30 to 90 days, and also Beatmaker did a thing that was 30 to 90
so
days. This was during the pandemic, I believe.
No, okay, fine, but before that, after Beatmaker 3 first came out, this is probably a couple years ago. People were mad. They were like, how dare I pay 30 or whatever the price was for the app, and now you guys release it free a month later for a month. I feel totally it's like, whoa, like $30, dude, about an app this capable? Like, you're mad because they try to be philanthropic? It's like, sheesh, can't win. You give it away for free, they're mad. You increase the price, they're mad. It's hard. As a developer, I feel for them.
Absolutely. And this is the stuff, this is the plight that developers go through, guys. Like, just so you know, this is just some of the little things, and there's a lot of stuff that they have to go through. But Jarrell, let's go to you next, and then Brandon after that. Jarrell, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, is $50 a good price for you right now? As far as, do you agree that $50 around the ecosystem right now is anything up until then? Most people are buying kind of without a hitch, and would you be upset if, you know, everybody's app prices started to increase over time?
Yeah, man. First off, I think price increases is inevitable. I think the question is how it increases. When it comes to my personal threshold for apps and stuff, like it's different for everybody.
Sure.
And it really depends on what you want to do with it. But I don't know. Developers can't quantify that. Like, you can't quantify, oh, is this person going to be willing to pay it? How many of them, the
They
other
just have
people
to,
that
they
I
just
need
have to
to
go
get
by
in-
the market, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm saying, $50 for like what iPad beatmaking was saying. If beatmaker 3 was $100 and the updates were on point and we were getting increased features, the things that all of us have been saying we're waiting for, like, heck yeah, like I would pay $100 for that. Somebody might have to save up for that, and that's just the case for some folks. But if you're confident in what you're offering and you know that people that are doing music at this level will see the innovation and value that, I think that then yeah, you go for it. I mean, it could be scary to put out an app that's expensive and it might just tank. Like, you're always running that gamble. But yeah, man, I think it's inevitable that prices are going to increase. But I also wonder, the thing that makes me nervous is just I feel like we're headed towards a direction of just almost entirely subscription based. And that's kind of frustrating, especially when it's like inevitable subscriptions. Like, it's like, if I want to have this, you're going to have my money out of my pocket every month. And I understand that model is to sustain the development team, really, and also to make them profit. But like, that to me is, I like owning my stuff, like, I don't lease my phones with Apple. Like, I pay for them, and maybe I do that in installments, but when I finish the installment, it's mine. Like, that's how if we could think about something more in the realm of installments for applications rather than subscriptions. Now,
Like
sometimes
additional updates that you could pay for, additional IPs or something.
Well, okay, yeah, that's kind of more in the realm of, like, downloadable content. I think what I'm saying is, for the initial app purchase, could we do something where, you say, I don't know, I don't know if that's really profitable.
Multi-tiered. Maybe you're talking about multi-tiered, like, options to purchase for the app. Like, I want this. I only need this many features, so I'll pay this much. Or I want all the features, so give me the most expensive one. Is that what you're talking about? Maybe.
That's not what I was talking about, but that actually sounds, I think that is actually a really good idea. I think, obviously people have done that before, but in the iPad world, I don't think that's super popular. So yeah, I would love to see multi-tiered options. Also, I'm okay with, paying an additional, like, in-app purchase for new downloadable content. If it adds features that are useful, like, do that, man. Some people aren't going to need those features and they're not going to need to purchase that, but at least you still got their initial purchase, and you might have to price according to that for what's your initial app, going to cost, so that you can have the bar at least low enough to get the people in that aren't going to need your pro features. And then when the people that paid for your app come in and they need those pro features, they're headed to your in-app purchase already.
It seems logical that at least if your application is fairly complex, if it's just an effect, right? Like an effect, like, for example, the new Bleeds Dragonfly app or something like that. If it's just, a single effect, I don't know how viable that solution would be. I guess this is for more complex apps like DAWs, maybe something like that.
100%. Yeah, that's what I would say.
All right, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's go to Brandon Rico then next. I guess we're going in reverse from what we did before. So, Brandon Rico, what is your thoughts on this, man? Do app prices need to increase, and would you be upset? And what do you think about that $50 that $50 limit? What's your personal preference, man? Let us know.
All right, so I want to say that this very topic is a very dangerous one, and I'm gonna tell you why.
We're dangerous out here, fam.
Because
the world's most dangerous podcast. Sorry. Going.
We have the buying power and the opportunity to let the developers and manufacturers or whoever's producing these things, we have to let them know what is acceptable and what is not in the market. So subscription based anything, I'm not a fan of. I don't want to pay any subscriptions for
I hate
anything.
'em.
Like Tyrell said, I would love to own all of my things, right? If it comes down to installments, then whatever, as long as I have the option to own, right? iPad Beat Making said that you wouldn't be mad about the $100, let's say Beat Maker 3 or, cubasis. I wouldn't be mad at it. Honestly, because of what it can do, it's not how the app prices increase, but why the app prices increase. You get what I'm saying? So we look
Absolutely.
at trends that Apple are doing, where they get to charge $200 more than last year because they added an extra camera. How much did it cost them to implement that extra camera to an already pre-existing model? Was it $200 worth? Or is that just, it's the new shiny feature, so they can charge more because they're Apple, so they will. So I don't want to make it okay for random, or not even random, flagship developers to come in and charge us the same exact price for half the workflow. So when you increase the prices, of course it's inevitable. Especially if we're looking for offerings like Spectrasonics or Native Instruments and the whole nine, flagship people, right? If we're looking for those, they have to deliver. What they can do versus how much they cost has to be the conversation, because we've seen $25, $27 reverbs. No, thank you. I'm not paying
Even $30 reverbs from, I think, UVI, I think.
Okay, so what it can do versus how much I'm paying for it versus what's already on the market. We've had this conversation on iPad Beatmaking's channel. Read the room. What are we already paying for similar, similar things? And this is why this conversation is so dangerous, is because if we accept it now, then yeah, by the time Omnisphere comes out or we can now get 1 to 2 terabytes of storage on iPads. So storage is not an issue anymore, right?
I think we agree that the hardware is just not an issue in general. Speed and
that's not
RAM and hard drive space.
The issue now is the developers and how much they're going to put, how much space in their libraries, what the thickness of that sound is going to be, or what the processing power is for that feature. That has to meet the expectation of what I'm paying for. $50. We talked about that again on iPad Beat Making's channel. $25. If I really want it, I'll buy it. I'll save up for it. If that's a thing, if you know what I mean, if you have to save up $25 for an app, all right, cool. $30. Ooh, okay. It's really good though, so I'll buy it. You start getting very questionable when it comes to $50 apps. What does it do? Where can I go with this? How many features does it offer? And it's impulse purchase. Impulse purchase is not going to be made at $50. That's just not. You now you're starting to ask questions. Now you're starting to wonder, well, do I have lunch for money for lunch this week, or do I have gas in my car? And when you start asking questions like that, you start to look at alternatives, and the key is to give that bang for buck up front, as opposed to just charging it because you have the name, or just because you know what I mean? Like, don't be flagship and give us half-baked libraries because of the name that comes with it, but actually deliver. And when it comes to prices increasing, I believe that the iOS community is ready for the price increase, but we're like the very first conversation we had, we're also ready for that pro experience that comes with that price increase. So, yeah, those have to be definitely be in line.
Yep, great points, man. Absolutely great points. The app has to be worth it. You can't be, even just because you have a name doesn't mean you can throw out a $50 to $100 app and everybody will eat it up. Especially if you're only delivering half baked, half kind of baked samples or sounds. Like, look, we're gonna know. Like, there's gonna be people. There are YouTubers. This is the information age. People are gonna look at this and be like, "Look, this is the same sounds I have in another app." So we're gonna, so you can't.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. But we definitely wanted to make it okay, for app developers to charge more if they bring the features.
If they can deliver,
if they
absolutely.
Can deliver. So yeah, so great points.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can go on to Jacob now for this. The last but not least, Mr. Jacob Hack. You've been patiently waiting, bro? You see, all quiet. You didn't barely jump in at all on this topic, so you got to be chomping at the bit. What are your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, I'm Swedish. That's why I sit quietly. To interrupt someone is awful and obnoxious in my culture, but I had to learn the hard way that sometimes you have to do that when you're interacting with people in other countries. So I might seem a bit weird. Now, what I think about this is that most of y'all have already said like the stuff that I agree with. Like, I just gotta ask all of you. I know we all hate subscription models. We all do. Now, how many of us have use Netflix? How many of us?
All of us.
Okay, yeah. Do we hate that?
No, it's only $8 a month, and I get this huge library of stuff.
And we get a huge library, right? Is there anyone out there? In
this case, it's a convenience. You're saying in this case, it's
it is convenience. Yeah, it's convenience. It's a huge, massive library that is weirdly tailored in the way that I only usually watch 5% of what's on there. But you know what I mean?
There's a lot of crap.
Yeah, and many times I just really feel like I don't want to pay for this anymore. Like, and I'm holding out just to see more. So maybe it's a bad example, but we do use some subscription stuff, and a lot of the users and people watching this and listening to what we're saying, they will recognize themselves. They hate subscriptions, but we still subscribe to a lot of stuff. And for me, as a reviewer,
it has to be there, right? The convenience though has to be there. Has to be a reason.
Yeah, definitely. But for me, it's inconvenient to have like close to Christmas. I will go out and I will look through between maybe 50 to 100 apps for my lists to check them out and really review them. I do not want to have to go in and try to turn off 100 subscriptions or do 100 no, I like owning my stuff too. I mean, for crying out loud, I still order DVDs of movies that I love. Like, I still do that. And if I see something on Netflix, I'll be out there Googling, like, can I buy this on a DVD or Blu-ray or something? Because I just want this in my collection. So I'm still old, in that. Like, I feel like I'm getting old. I can't help it. My hair is all gray. I'm balding. I'm losing my teeth. I mean, come on. I like that old tech. And Nutrix, you look like you're a bit hit there.
Well, I think I'm a little bit older than you.
Look at this ageism. Just because Nutrix has gray hair, he assumed that Nutrix is old.
No, well, I'm 48.
Yeah, and I'm 42, so actually we're getting old. So what I'm trying to say in the end is, I think, of course, we're going to see prices increase, and it's important, like Brandon says, why they increase, the reason to it, because I don't want to see a shitstorm like with. Take gaming, for instance. Take mobile gaming, which is completely ruined by pay to wait. You're not paying to win anymore. You're paying to sit and wait for a stupid meter to go down so you can buy more crystals to wait some more for a new meter to buy some more crystals. It's so stupid. I don't even understand. Yeah, I do understand. It's addiction.
They're making billions. They're taking advantage of
Yeah, they're making billions. Yeah. And to me, it's completely useless. I don't think that that's going to happen to music. I really don't hope that. So I don't know. I mean, if we're gonna have these bigger companies stay around, it's gonna have to be viable for them to stay around. And so maybe we won't see the most pro features from their most pro stuff come over here. We might see some increases of them. We might see some in-app purchases where we can unlock stuff. I'm all for that. If I can unlock stuff, if I'm getting stuff when I'm paying for it, that's okay. I don't want to do subscription. I will go into an app and I will buy the in-app purchases for loops I will not use just to support that developer. You can go, I think that every developer that has an app, make a little app store, go in there and say, give me a coffee, anything, buy a sticker. And when you pay for it, you get that sticker on the app when you open it. So you're supported that way. I mean, a lot of people want to do that for you when they love your stuff. They will give you the means to carry on if you make stuff that they like. So yeah, the reason to why prices increase is very important. And I hope they do it for the right reasons and not just, God, it would be so awful if they just put out something and then started just taking stuff out and selling it in portions instead, which is kind of unlocking, but you can do that in a really bad way where it feels like you're buying an empty shell and now you have to buy all the other stuff. It's like buying a car without wheels and a steering wheel. I don't want it to be like that. The iPad almost feels like that when I want to connect my sound card to it. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I get so frustrated by this whole thing because I see a lot of people get angry and like when someone like a developer puts out a new version of an app and someone says, oh, it's the same code and it's the same everything. And it's like, I know personally because I have been involved with app development and it will take me 7 years to make back the money for the time that I put in to Agonizer at this price point. 7 years for what I'm making. 7 years it will take. I will never make that money back because we won't be selling it. We won't be selling it enough in 7 years. I know this. Kai knows this. Why are we still doing it? Well, Kai is still doing it because he's doing 3 to 5 apps per year. That's how he's doing it. That's how most of these single third-party developers are doing it. And it's not sustainable because you have to drop apps after a time because you can't update 35 apps. You can't in the end. And so there has to, like, we are not entitled to everything, we are not entitled to everything. And sometimes I feel like there's a lot of entitlement, like people feel like stuff should be for free almost. I had a comment yesterday saying, bro, your app should be half price because it's my app. Why? That's not an argument. I don't even understand that. And it is half price when there's a sale and the in-app purchase is for free during sales. I mean, come on. I don't know. I'm just frustrated by this. I don't have a good answer.
Yeah, I don't think there's a great answer other than we have to kind of wait and see what the market does. But it's really what I want to bring it back to is this convenience thing again. There's a reason why we pay our subscription for Netflix because no one wants to lug 10,000 videos around, right? Or 1 million videos, whatever they have on there. And then like Adobe, they kind of started this whole software subscription thing. Like you could pay $30 a month instead of paying $10,000 for the entire Adobe suite. Like that's convenient. For a lot of businesses. So the convenience has to be there. If it's just a single app that I'm not even going to use a whole lot, why the heck would I ever do a subscription? Now, if it's some kind of DAW, like where you need it, you better be, providing features and crazy amounts of features and stuff to do that. But that's where it's more makes more sense is if it's a larger application. Unfortunately, the subscription model just doesn't make sense for smaller apps. It has to be, same with the multi-tier. The multi-tier, all of these additional payment options seem to be only going to be for these larger apps where, unfortunately, like Jacob says, these smaller apps like Blease and such, and their app as well, like they just can't, and Kaiara's, they just can't keep this sustained model by producing and releasing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 apps a year every single year. Like that's just not going to be sustainable for people because they're not. What if they fall in love with an app and then Kai says, "Look, I can't support it because there's not enough people who have bought this app." So, that's where it gets real tricky. So again, I don't think there's an easy answer for this, but I think that overall, all of us would not mind in general, if app prices started to increase, especially if the features were there. And we really want to welcome, larger priced apps, especially from big developers that are going to bring that actual convenience to us, bring that actual worth to us for something like a Contact or something like that with just tons of built-in stuff. So and we want to encourage app developers to do that, but at the same time also we want to make sure that they know that the ecosystem knows that above $50 right now, where we are right now, people are going to double take it. But there are a lot of people that will definitely impulse buy anything under $50. There's definitely a bunch of people that are continuing to do that, especially even if it's just to support the developer because they know the developer is good. Impulse buying $8, that's a cup of coffee. Like, it's just not going to make us double think. But when you're talking about $50, okay, now you better provide some value. And I think that kind of sums up what we're general thinking here. If anybody else has any thoughts, Nutrix, raising your hand. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Well, the question about membership and monthly payment is something that is not just for the iPad. I mean, we have the same thing on computers and all that stuff. And
yeah, I mentioned Adobe. Yeah,
that's it. I have the Roland Cloud Ultimate account where I started with. They basically offered me, so I tested out, so I could actually do demos for them at one point. And today, if they would take it out, I would actually go in and pay for it, because it offers such a wide range of tools that I like to use that the value of it, I know, is worth it for what I'm doing. Because it's some of it is for the iPad, but most of it is for the computer. But the amount of plugins you get is just amazing. And if you like the Roland sound, well, it's the ultimate. You get a new sample pack every month. You get new MIDI packs every month. The amount of value you get has to be the value that you pay for. And so anybody who wants to raise the cost, they're also going to raise the questioning about that people will have. And then you might have less sales, of course, because people will say, well, I'm going to keep, instead of buying 3 apps, I'm going to buy just one. And that's the reality of things. But then again, it will weed out those who are less efficient, less interesting, and you're going to get the good one stand out, and if it's too costly, well, people won't buy it if it doesn't equal the value that they get. That's,
and like you say, I mean, you're paying for Roland Cloud, but that's basically like a Netflix of sounds. It's super convenient to be able to have all those sounds, and especially across multiple devices with the Roland Cloud, because they're starting to support iPad more and more with ZenBeats and stuff. So yeah, definitely it seems like if it does provide a convenience, then it seems like consumers will definitely do the subscription. But don't just throw in a subscription model, willy nilly. Jacob, I think you're raising your hand.
Yes, and I'm lowering it now. So there was this talk about like $30 apps, $40 apps. For me, there are a few apps that actually lies in that price range where I didn't even think about it. I like when they came out and they became AV3, and I'm talking about FabFilter here. Yep. I just went on the App Store and I purchased the entire thing. And I mean, these are $30+ apps. That's exactly what they are. Do we get the value that $30 bring? Yeah, and way more, because I paid about $150 for the plugin pack, and there's 5 or 6 plugins. And if you try to buy one of them on desktop, you pay $150 for one of them. And are they worth it? Yeah. And a lot of people will look at the price, and then we'll look at the closest thing, which is tone boosters. They're really, really good, these plugins, the tone boosters plugins. And if you look at them, I'm not saying they're copying FabFilter, but they do look really similar, don't they? They do. And I love their apps. They're really cool. And they do some features that just don't exist in the FabFilter ones. But when you start looking at something, for instance, like Pro Q3, which is the best filter on iOS, like bar none. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And when you look at what it really, really does, just the fact that you can do brick wall filtering, which is like an insane filter curve. This is a pro. It is a pro tool. The TB Booster cannot do that. It can do up to 60 dBs of cutting, which is a lot, but it can't do brick wall, depending on what filter you have. Some of the filters only do 30 dBs of cut. So there is a huge difference. Then you have frequency matching. I mean, there's a lot in the FabFilter Pro Q3 plugin, and it's the same with all of their plugins. They're just, I mean, sure, you could probably find another limiter that can be as good as this one. You could, but not when it comes to metering, because it has everything when it comes to metering. So there are some apps that are just worth it. But yeah, of course, I would think a little bit extra if something comes out and it's around $40. And I'm going to have to ask myself, why is it $40? Is it going to be worth it? But in this case, there was no question. But for people who are new to music, it's going to be a serious question. Do I want to put $35 into this? I mean, it's just a filter. It's an equalizer, right? It's kind of hard to tell when you don't have the data to base your decision on. And then also, how important is it? Because, I mean, you can buy the tone boosters filter and it can take you far enough. It's really good, right? So yeah, it's a hard one.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely agree. Nutrix, go ahead.
My question is, which plugin or app would you wish to have on the iPad right now? You talked about voice, plugins.
Melodyne.
In my case, I would love to see Isotope plugins, because I use them all the time with doing video editing, cleaning up the tracks. It's just like these, just like perfect for repairing stuff. And that's the one thing I miss, honestly, because everything else we find good enough or really good stuff on the iPad already. But which one do you wish you had?
Definitely Contact. I just want I want everything Contact and all of the stuff that's supported inside of the actual library app on desktop. I want all that supported on iOS, and I want to go nuts. That's my thing. Anybody else want to chime in with an app that they really wish were on iOS that's only on desktop right now?
Yeah, I'm same as Nutrix. Yeah, I also want those plugins. I mean, that's what I was using, like Ozone. I was using that stuff all the time. I freaking love that stuff.
Industry standard stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was always there. I even loaded it in all my channels and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I want that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Illmind uses Ozone stuff all the time on his Twitch streams for sure. Jarrell,
yeah.
You got an app?
Yeah, man. I mean, you already heard. For me, it definitely is Melodyne or something comparable. But also, I'm into some of these, more niche things like, I mean, it's kind of blown up right now, but like the Vocally Doubler, the second version just came out. And just being able to beatbox in MIDI, like for my drums, is like...
Andrew Hong's got a video on that. But yeah,
I just watched it. Yeah,
fantastic app.
I would love to see something like that on iPad.
That'd be cool. I think we had an app where you could tap. Jacob did a review on this, I believe, back in the day. This is an old app where you could tap on. It would take sound that you tap on, so you could tap on anything like and make a noise, and then it would translate that to a MIDI input, so that you could actually play drums just by tapping on the. You could trigger your drums just by tapping on the desk. Jacob,
that might have been someone. Yeah, it might have been someone else that did that video. Might have been Doug Woods, actually, because okay. I've tried so many of these apps and none of them are really accurate. So I never made a video about it.
Okay, yeah, it was definitely pretty accurate. Like it would detect every little noise as a MIDI input. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I have been following a project for many, many years that never came to iOS. It never came to fruition. It was called Imitone. And it was a really, really good algorithm for putting, you do beatboxing or singing or anything, it would translate that into MIDI notes perfectly. And we never saw it. The Kickstarter went all the way. They did the desktop software. And everyone is still waiting for the iOS software, even though they hit that milestone and it never hit. So I've talked to Evan, the guy who started that project, but he stopped answering. So I guess it's one of those where, it just trails off and the money's just out and they can't continue.
Yep. iPad beat making or Brandon, you guys got an app that you want to bring from the desktop to iOS that's not there yet?
I would definitely love to see some stuff from, Native Instruments has to come to iOS. For sure, Omnisphere,
Please.
Nexus, and I
nice.
think I've been able to substitute or supplement those cravings for those type of libraries. I'm more of a I don't do a lot of vocals. I only use vocals to reference, when I'm writing for other artists and stuff like that. So I don't do a lot of vocal effects plugins or anything like that.
I know
I'm
iPad
more
beat
of a
making does for sure. Does vocals all the time. What do you think?
nice.
What do you think iPad beat making?
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said here. For me personally, having a true desktop class, I don't need it to look like a desktop DAW. Do it in the iOS format, if whatever fits the developer's mindset. But desktop class DAW is on the top of my list that you can do live vocal tracking in. The DAWs we currently have. Oh, so let me say which one. So far, Logic, Pro Tools, Cubase, New. I don't care. Studio One. I really don't.
Live. You don't care.
They're all.
Yo, FL Studio, please.
FL Studio.
FL Studio. Yeah, they're all the same at a certain point in terms of being way more capable than what we currently have for live vocal tracking and all that for iOS. And give me Auto Tune, Melodyne, something, a professional grade pitch correction plugin in a professional grade DAW, any of those, good. And all the native instrument stuff. Come on, let's get it.
Absolutely. And I just think it's a matter of time with the amount of power that iPad keeps putting in these darn devices every single freaking year almost. It's just it doubles. It just gets really ridiculous how they just keep finding ways to put this power in there. And now with this whole new architecture with the M1 architecture, and God knows where they're going to take that with M2s and M3s and craziness. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. So, all right. Anybody have any other final comments on this topic? Nope. I think I was going to do another topic, but let me ask everybody how they're doing. I mean, we're almost at 2 hours, so I think we should probably start ending it here. Like I said, we're already almost 2 hours in here, so but we'll definitely be doing this show, once every month. So I'm going to get more topics and more people on, but I think we can start to end it. So what I want to do now is just go around the panel here and find out where we can find out more information about you guys. So Jacob, we'll start with you first. Where can we learn more about you, sir?
You can find me on YouTube, Jakob Hack. It's just youtube.com/Jakob Hack, and it will bring you to my channel. You'll find my very beautiful kiss-friendly face there. And I do videos about mobile music making. It's a hard sell. It's a hard cookie to sell. I'm just a dude in a bedroom, and I've been specializing in mobile music making for the past, what is it, like 8 years?
Almost 10
now. Yeah, almost 10. And I mean, I've had so much fun. I've met a lot of friends, and I just love to see how far we've all come, how many channels there are now that are doing it. So I'm very impressed by you guys. I think you're all doing a great job. I'm supposed to sell myself, but yeah, you know where to find me. I'm done.
Jakob Hack, people, the great Jakob Hack. You will find all of his stuff on YouTube. He's got Twitter and IG as well, so definitely make sure you follow him. But you guys already know who he is. Come on. All right, let's go next. Nutrix, where can we find more about you, sir?
Well, I'm mostly on YouTube. That's the place I put stuff, and the rest of my online presences are basically to promote what I do on YouTube. That's the basic of how I live online. I've been I was a trained sound engineer that I studied in the 90s. I'm that old. And I've been a teacher for synthesis and sampling and all that stuff over the years. So when we talked about old software, when we talked about Fruity Loop stuff, I was before that. Before I was learning with DOS.
Yes.
Before Windows.
DOS inside of DOS. DAWs inside of DOS. So, people. It's a thing.
And I can name a lot of DAWs that don't exist anymore. But that's it. So I've been in it since I don't know how long, and I love it. And I started my YouTube channel about 4 years ago. And what I do, I talk about how to use software and hardware and iPad. It's a mix of everything because I'm just into synthesizers, all of them. Any ways you can get them and use them, I'm happy with that.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely. And yeah, so for those that are seeing this, you're probably realizing that this is an intro/outro because I forgot to do intro to all these guys. So normally for the show I do, before we start the topics, I want to do an intro one by one, but we're kind of combining that now at the end, the intro and the outro. So sorry about that, guys. But Jarrell, where can we find out more about you? And then maybe, I guess, also tell us a little bit about yourself. which I should.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm Jarrell Amani. You can find me on YouTube at Music Technologist. It's youtube.com/music technologist. And yeah, man, I always say my tagline is to help you master the tech you need to make music freely. And that's because I believe to some degree, you know, tech isn't just the stuff we use right now. To some people, a drum is tech. And, you know, learning how to use your tools properly unlocks the possibilities for what you can make, even if it's a small set of tools. So that's ultimately my stake in this is helping people to master those things so that they really can just go in and do anything they want and make dope music. That's what I'm all about. But about myself, like I'm let's see, I've been producing for probably about 13 years. I'm a young dude though, so I'm only 26. So that's me starting at 30, at 13.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought you were in your 30s. My bad.
It's all good, man. I get that all the time. I think it's the beard.
It's the beard.
But yeah, man, I'm classically trained. I started in middle school on the viola and took that all the way through college. Got my my bachelor's degree in music education. And I started out as a teacher, and that's really what I am at heart. I have my teaching credential in music education. And, that's what I'm trying to do here online and try to help as many people as possible. Because I think about people starting now at age 13 and how much you could do now that I couldn't do then. And there's so much more to think about. And I want to, create an avenue for people to do that. So yeah, find me on YouTube, check out the videos. And I'm happy to be really humbled to be a part of this, awesome group of creators in this online presence. You guys are all awesome. So thanks for
absolutely, man. Definitely check out Jarrell's YouTube channel. This guy plays all sorts of different instruments on there, and he does it all live for you guys, right? So definitely check that out. And don't give him too much crap because he's just a baby. But still, 26. I don't know. I'm 38, so maybe I call anybody under 26 or 26 and under a baby. But yeah, no, definitely check out his channel. He's got tons of amazing content. Next up, Mr. Brandon Rico. If you guys don't know him, you need to know him. Where can we find out more about you, sir? And tell us maybe a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm Brandon Rico. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere except TikTok. So I'm either Brandon Rico or Brandon Rico Simpson. So I've been into iOS beat making since about maybe 2014-ish. And I just started out using the iPad as a peripheral device, as an assistant, and then I started, developing a workflow to where I literally trained myself to make beats solely on the iPad and make them sound, comparable enough to kind of rival desktop production. So I started my YouTube channel in 2017 consistently, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, definitely make sure you check out Brandon's channel. He's got a lot of stuff on there. A lot of big videos hit too as well. He's got a lot of big videos on there that are like 500,000 views and stuff. So definitely a lot of good stuff on there, guys. Don't sleep on Brandon's channel. Tons of great stuff. Everybody here has such amazing content. I just have to thank you guys just so much from really the bottom of my heart that you guys continue to put out this stuff. Because look, guys, these guys aren't millionaires. We're not making millions here. We're not making a ton of money doing this. We are providing this content because we have the passion for it, and we want you to be able to experience what we experience here. So just really, really appreciate, guys, if you can make sure to follow these guys, follow them on their socials, go to their websites, buy the products if they have some, buy their music. There is just a lot of passion here from that I can see out here, not just from the panelists today, but just out there in the iOS music community. So definitely make sure you are shouting everybody out as much as you can. So thank you, guys. I just want to say thank you again so much for being here. Oh, Jarrell.
Don't forget iPad beat making.
Oh my God.
iPad beat making.
Oh my God, I forgot iPad beat making. No, I love you, bro. Go ahead. I'm sorry, man. I love you.
Yeah, so basically the objective coming to iOS for me and for the rest of us who is on the team is to try to get out of the studio, is to try to get out of the dark room that's basically like a casino where you don't know when it's night, when it's day. You want to get out into the world, be able to interact with the people you care about still, go to picnics, go to the beach, just go do whatever you do and still be able to be a creative at the same time. So that was what we created the channel on YouTube for, was to be able to give you some tools and inspiration to be able to get, you know, that desktop class experience on your iOS device, whether it be the phone, whether it be the iPad. Also, if you have budgetary constraints and you can't look at a single plugin on your desktop being $500, it's like, well, how do we approximate that on iOS for you? How do we get you close enough to where you can make that happen? So that is the objective of iPad beatmaking, is empowerment, just like the rest of the panelists here, all about empowering different styles of music and artists to be able to accomplish it all on an iOS device. And the contacts would be iPad beatmaking on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at Gmail, and check out some of the best kits available for iOS at iPadbeatmaking.com.
Absolutely, guys. If you are into any type of hip-hop trap music, iPadBeatmaking.com has got you covered. Tons of great sample packs on there, tons of great products. And just a quick shout out to your 808 engine too for Nano Studio 2. For those that do use the Nano Studio DAW on iOS, if you are using Nano Studio to produce hip-hop music and you don't have iPadBeatmaking.com's packs, you're doing something wrong with your life. There's something wrong. So definitely make sure you check out iPadBeatmaking.com. So thanks again, guys, so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, until next time, everybody, keep talking music, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, Vortex here, and if you're not aware yet, we now have over 100 fully edited mobile music tutorial videos. And we make music every single Wednesday live on our channel right inside of Cubasis on our iPad. Plus, we also have a bunch of free sample packs, guides, and more at our website at MobileMusicPro.com/free. And so if you are into that sort of thing, producing music on your iPhone or iPad, then definitely make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the videos on the channel that we know you'll love.